Hey everyone, today we have the very amazing Miss Anuradha, and she is not just the designer, she is also taking care of how the Indian craft and design can work as a modern design as well. And she is supporting a lot of artisan, and she is also the pioneer of India who are like integrating Indian craft and then sustainability and how she is building a community and empowering the community. And she is also the head lady of Bamford Foundation and the director of the amazing NilaHouse. So, and her experience is not just like working on the craft. She's trying to make a modern twist in the craft, and she is also one of the person who is like saving and preserving the Indian craft and trying to create a balance like what is happening today's world and what we were doing already. So please have a big round of applause for Miss Anuradha Singh. Hello, ma'am. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
I'm doing good. So, ma'am, when did you started? Did you started first thinking about sustainability or design, or there was this urge to do something, create something? How did that all happened?
For NilaHouse,
For NilaHouse, even before that, how you thought that you were interested in something like that, craft and then design? How that happened to you? How that came to you?
okay, it came to me because actually my father was in the craft sector, and so I think I was born into crafts. My father was he was the founder of Gurjari, which was the Gujarat Emporium for handicrafts. And he was also the chairman cum managing director of Cottage Industries and the Handloom Export Corporation. So when I was born, he was looking after Gurjari at that time. I mean, he just started Gurjari in Gujarat. So as a child, I remember very, very faintly traveling with him and, going to craftspeople's homes, looking at beautiful things. I don't think I played with dolls bought from the market. I played with toys which were made by craftspeople. I traveled with my parents, my father, and played and visited their homes. I was born in a home which was filled with crafts, things. I wore clothes which were not only made by my father but also made by textiles which were bought from craftspeople. So I think that was my initial sort of introduction to craft.
So slow gradually happened to you. It wasn't like a surprise. Oh, like that, right?
I was born in this. I think all of us are born in it.
Yeah.
I, of course, was more closely born to it, but I think these days children are losing that sense for craft. They all want modern things. They all want new things. I think that's what we're going to have to deal with more than anything else. This generation is always looking for newness
Yeah.
in their lives.
Hey, everyone, I would also like to tell you that Neela House is not just a name of the brand. It is actually a house turned into a studio. So, ma'am, can you please tell more about Neela House?
Yeah, so NilaHouse is actually not just a studio. NilaHouse is actually the front-facing space for a lot of work that we do in craft communities across the country. We are working with we're working in 17 states now of the country with nearly 3,000 craftspeople. Neela House's work, initiated with the need to showcase craft and design, and the beauty of hand skills. We are basically focusing on handmade textiles, hand woven, hand spun cloth. as well as natural dyes, specifically indigo. And NilaHouse is a space for that showcasing. NilaHouse is a space for interaction. It's a space for knowledge sharing. We have, we have workshop spaces. We have a studio. We have a museum, and a museum come gallery space. We also have a shop where we present textiles and products which are used for which are showcased in terms of the hand spun, hand woven textile as well as natural dye. Yeah, and we also, and the space is also used for cultural programming because, there's such a thin line between culture and heritage and craft and art and music. So yeah, so NilaHouse is, I think, more than just a studio. We opened in 2019. The space was refurbished and restored. It was an old home which wasn't actually being used. It was completely dilapidated. It took us 2.5 years to restore. Again, the restoration work was done using traditional craft techniques. So, the building, whatever cement was in the building, we actually completely stripped the building of cement, and we redid the building using traditional craft techniques. So it's a showcase to what is possible using craft and our cultural heritage. It's a showcase for everyone actually, and it's an interactive space for learning, and it's an interactive space for craft and livability and design and interactions. Yeah. So our founding principle is to gather, to nurture, and to share. This is NilaHouse. It is actually not a current picture, but this was just before we opened.
Okay.
Looks a little bit different. This was the old building, which we did a lot of restoration work on. We used traditional, like I said, traditional craft techniques like araish and lime work, etc. And of course, craftsmen, which worked on stone, which worked on the building using these techniques. So we do exhibitions. This is one of our galleries, which is in the basement, which is an antique textile gallery. So we do various exhibitions across the year on antique textiles. These are textiles which are private collectors' sort of collections, and we rotate these exhibitions through the year. We also do artisan exhibitions. This is an artisan from Kutch, and we did a beautiful exhibition in 2019. So this is an old exhibition. We do workshops.
Oh, nice. Workshop with kids as well. Good.
Yeah, we do workshops across board. We do online workshops. We do cultural programs, talks. We celebrate heritage and culture. This is a library. We have an open library, so for people to come and read and do research work. We have books on crafts, textiles, art, architecture also. We have a Khadi archive, so any textiles that we work with, we archive it, and so we have a Khadi archive of all the textiles that we work with.
Yeah.
Again,
So can we
for
just directly come to the library and archive, or we have to
Yeah.
register first? We
No,
can.
you can come. You'll have to take an appointment, and you can come. Absolutely. We do community building sessions with women as well as artisan groups who we work with. Again, community building within the community where we're working with the craftspeople. So our work is basically supporting the entire value chain of craft and specifically hand-spun, hand-woven textiles. So we work across the value chain, starting from the farming bit of it. So we're looking at cultivating indigenous farming, of cotton at the moment. So there's obviously already Kala cotton in Gujarat, but also Nagaland has a tree variety of cotton. So cultivating cotton, and then going through the entire value chain of spinning, weaving, natural dyeing, um, which includes a lot of research work in terms of the natural dyes. As we know, craftspeople do it very inherently. They don't have recipes, but this is something that we're documenting also as part of our work, because a lot of documentation is lost out in our work. So research also on plantation, that's indigo dye, indigo growing on NilaHouse terrace. A lot of research on the fibers. Then there's skill building, working with women, working with artisanal groups on skill building and upskilling so that it leads to income generation for them. And then, of course, our collections, which is, which is primary to any crafts person, because unless you give them a market, there's really no point in going through all of that work.
This
So
is
we
very
build the
good.
entire value chain, and we create markets for the craftspeople. These are some of our works for the collection. This is our shop at Nila. So we have retail, online, offline. These are some community vats that we initiate. Knowledge sharing.
Please also tell about indigo dyeing.
Process. So it's a very complicated process. I don't think I can really tell you about indigo dyeing as such, but indigo is the oldest dye in the world. There are many varieties of indigo plant, but only a few give color. And in India, the Indigo tinctoria is what is used for this process. And actually, the plant itself doesn't have the color. It's the leaf which it needs to be the indigo tin, which is the pigment, which is part of the pigment, needs to be extracted from the plant, which comes from in a very tedious and long, laborious process where you have to harvest the leaves. You have to put weight on them for anywhere between 12 to 18 hours, and that in water. And that's when, so you weigh it down. That's when the indigo tin is released. But that still doesn't have the color. That water is still green, or it's muddy yellow. And it's only after that when you aerate it. So basically, it's the oxygen which makes the color turn blue. So you have to aerate the mixture and let it sit, and then the color actually comes out. That also cannot be used directly, because indigo is hydrophobic. So you can't use indigo just, it doesn't dissolve in water. So there's another process after we retrieve the pigment. There's another process of making a vat. And that uses reducing agent, that uses an alkalining agent, and those are put together in a vat, natural vat, which is a mud. And with the indigo, there are various proportions. And that's how we dye, either yarn or fabric or any kind of fiber with indigo. So it takes, indigo is a very tricky dye. And yet, if you understand it, it's very easy to do. We've been training craftspeople, women who've never done dyeing before, how to set up indigo vats and dye with using indigo vats. But it's in India, it's a sacred process. And a lot of craftspeople who still are doing natural indigo treat the vat with much care and love and sanctity. Other than that, today 90% of people are using chemical indigo, which is very easy to do. But it has traces of cyanide, it's toxic. and it has completely ruined the water table. I mean, all of Bagru, I think, has been ruined because of the German chemical indigo that was used. And it's really not good for any of us. It's not good. It's not good for us to wear. It's not good for us to put our hands in. And of course, the water table is poisoned because of it. So that's how we started working at Nila in terms of, the indigo dyeing processes, as well as the preservation of the indigo textile and indigo dyeing cultural history. I'm just going to share my screen again. Are there any questions on NilaHouse, or are there any questions on the work we do before I get into the session?
Hey, students, do you have any questions? Please write it down. I personally want to know the story behind the name of NilaHouse.
So Nila means blue.
Ah,
And that's where the name comes from, because when we founded Nila, our aim was specifically to work with hand-spun, hand-woven textiles and indigo.
yes.
So that's where and all this came from a study that we did in 2017, where we understood that the chemical dyes are actually ruining. It's very good to talk about sustainability, and it's very good to talk about crafts and resilience, but unless you actually get to the root cause of that, and that root cause is chemical quick fixes that craftspeople and cheap quick fixes that craftspeople have started using, you really can't talk about sustainability. So our aim was, of course, it's very small. It's a very small part of the entire universe. But our aim was to bring back natural dyes, to bring back indigo in its true sense. So that's where the name Nila comes from. I'm in a meeting.
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, you can see it?
Yes, Nila.
So NilaHouse is actually a not-for-profit based in Jaipur, and it's dedicated to preserving and celebrating India's rich heritage and traditional crafts, with a special focus on ecology, sensitive, languishing crafts, principally hand spinning, handloom weaving, and natural dye. So this is basically what our vision mission is of Nila. We support indigenous craft value chains. So our work primarily is in these areas: research, documentation, archiving, artisan engagement, skill development and upskilling, design and studio developments, market facilitation, and knowledge sharing. So if you see, it goes across the value chain, starting from the research, it goes into market facilitation. And of course, unless you knowledge share and unless you do outreach work, people are not going to know about crafts and the work that is so important in our country. I mean, even though we don't recognize it, but crafts is the second largest contributor to the economy in India, and we don't recognize it well enough. So unless people start understanding the value of crafts and the value of this hand skill that our craftspeople have, they're not really going to make it a part of their lives anymore. So the charkha, the spinning wheel, I think it's a strong symbol of self-reliance, sustainability, and harmonious living. I think this is really what it's all about, where we need to start thinking about, sustainability and what it was and what it means. And to Nila, the charkha is where it starts. Where, of course, even Gandhiji had talked about this, that don't depend on anybody but yourself. So you can actually spin your own cloth, which is going to adorn your body, and that is what harmonious living systems are, and that is what sustainability is. So this session is actually going to talk about, because we're talking about harmonious living, but we're also talking about transformations, and we're also talking about, co-creating design. in terms of craft. So I'm focusing basically on craft in terms of the design, and I'm focusing on how we can use craft and our design language to take it into the future. And I think this is most important when you talk about harmonious living, when you talk about indigenous living, when you talk about sustainability. This specific presentation will walk you through some of the works that we've done, but it's also going to take the students through the future of hand spinning, which I think is the most important part of co-creating, and also the most important part of the preservation of craft and textiles. So what is the concept? The concept that we talked about was khadi, and I think I've given the students also some assignment to do. And so I've sort of made this presentation in the same kind of format, where we say that when students are looking at doing a project, when they're looking at co-creation, when they're looking at sustainability, when they're looking at design, and if they have craft in mind, which I think is part of any design school or any design teaching in our country, because it's so inherent to us. You always need to look at a concept. So here I've taken khadi as the concept. So khadi, hand spinning, and hand weaving. Who are the co-creators? The co-creators are artisans, they are designers, and they are artists. Clothing for the new decade. Fashion is a sustainable choice. Fashion is a human-centric process. Textile solutions. So this is like a mind map, and I think this is what most students should be doing when they're looking at craft and when they're looking at design, where create a mind map of what your concept is, why you're using it, and who is it really for. So textile solutions for the environment, the meaning, the intent, and the restraint. So, and then create a platform for that work. So here we create a platform for khadi, in which we have spinners, we have weavers, we have designers, and we have artists. So, and what are we going to do with that? We're going to create an education and awareness. We're going to have artisan stories and interactions. We're going to have programming aligned, installations, hand woven as an art form, platform for spinners and weavers, and a celebration of local desi cotton strains. So this is really about taking khadi and taking hand spinning into the new and into the future. Because the thing is that unless you do that, and unless you make khadi not only part of your lives, so there is one side of hand spinning or craft where you make it part of your life, but there's another part of it where you make it desirable, where you make it more than just a commodity, right? And that comes with design, and that comes with art. Another works that was a collaboration with a very, very famous designer called Anna Valentine. Anna Valentine actually is a designer who made the wedding dress for Prince Charles's current wife, Camilla Parker Jones. And she, and this designer is somebody who wanted to come and work in the craft sector. So you can see the kind of techniques that she's used, with the artisans. This is Jamdani, a very, 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 very old textile, very, very beautiful textile. And again, this is a creation of works from Jamdani, from the sari. Even the sari, if you see, the sari is a very modern sari. So we've, the motifs that we've used are not really traditional motifs, but they're very modern motifs, as well as the translation of that into various products. Again, there's a jacket here, which was a collaboration with Bamford, and this did really well in terms of its showcasing. another jacket which was made by Antaragni and Kimchi. So all of this work is a collaboration between designers and artisans. So how artisans have used their skill and how designers have given the direction. But it's a co-creation,
Yes.
because I really do believe that the artisans are, have all that they need. It's just that a little bit of direction towards the current time is what needs to be worked out with them. This is works done by Veku, who's from Nagaland. So the cotton that's used is from the Naga tree cotton, and the textiles, of course, are very, very traditional. And she dyes the indigo herself, and she procures the cotton from villages near her home, and she creates. So this is a throw. So I think, in the past we would never call it a throw, but in today's language, product language, you can make throws, um, or this would just be a chadar, which would probably be used in the old times. Again, a very, very popular designer, Paivan Studio, Ruchika Sachdeva, and Bodice. So it was a great collaboration of actually zero waste weaving with handmade yarns. And you can see how beautiful the design is. So that, of course, was design in terms of apparel. Now I'm moving towards textile art. And that is, I think, the future of value of crafts. Here you can see, so I think textile art is the future as well, because unless that is what is going to really create value. Otherwise, crafts has become a commodity. So people think they can, it's just something that you'll wear, and it's something that you'll have. But if you have an artwork, which what a lot of textile artists are doing now, that is going to really create value in crafts. So this was, again, an exhibition that Neela curated, where we asked textile artists to join hands with craftspeople and create textile art with various artisans and clusters. So this is basically organic sustainable fibers that you can see here. And it's a beautiful panel which was made by Amba Weave, by Wasim. And really, really beautiful. It's absolutely Kora, and it's a total natural finish. Again, an artist, a very young woman called Champa Siju, who's actually weaving in Kutch. And she's one of the few women who've actually started weaving, because weaving is basically in Kutch a man's job. And there are a handful of women daughters who've come out from weaving families saying that we want to weave too. So Champa is actually weaving tapestries with indigenous Kala cotton wool on a frame loom. This is a beautiful work done by SWGT, and it's a collaboration with Nanmohan Das, using eri silk, munga, gicha, and nuni silk. So it's a lotus fiber. The base is a lotus fiber, and it's an installation that was made for our exhibition using various techniques. So it really shows the dimensions, and it really shows the 3D sort of effect of how craft can be used as installations, as well as the artwork. Again, a piece which was made by, on the left, you can see live from the loom. Again, Suti Looms, this village which is in Malakpur, which is 45 minutes from Jaipur, and it was made for Sutra Santati. Again, showcasing the whole cycle of hand spun textile. So it's hand spun, hand woven, hand dyed textile, and because it was dyed using natural indigo, and it was a really well accepted piece at Sutra Santati. That was the second edition of Sutra Santati. On the right, by Asif Sheikh, beautiful panels. Which use Mugad Gicha as well as Nuni silk for the embroidery. on this textile panel. And the textile actually is again hand-spun, hand-woven by Shamji Bhai at in Kutch. I think this is basically just a showcase, just a very brief showcase. But I mean, but we're talking about embracing that change. We're talking about inspiring a transformation, but we're also talking about adapting, craft and adapting resilience, to take it forward. So I think that is the most important thing in the changing times, especially for the country. How to use craft, how to make craft resilient, and inspire transformation for the future. And I think that is what I would say any designer's aim should be in today's world, at least for India, because we have a world full of designers in the world. We have a world full of designers from Japan, from China, from America, from all places. But what they don't have is our cultural heritage. And that's what is going to make our designers different. That is what is going to allow. And in today's world, where we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about adaptability, we're talking about all of these techniques, we have it in our backyard. So, I would say use it, be different, and try and create something, adapting and using our craft techniques for the changing times. But of course, inspiring it with and transforming it with your design language. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.